Hello everyone, I'm the old guy and welcome to another naval action video, and today I want to talk about the negative feedback or the negative reviews on Steam. It's overwhelmingly negative response and the negativity on Discord. It pains me to read all of these things. I am a new player and I'm absolutely loving naval action right now, and I'm kind of hoping that maybe if people are interested in the game and they're new and they see this video, that I can convince them to give the game a try and kind of ignore the overwhelmingly negative reviews. So I want to go over some of the most common complaints about the game and give you my take on them. So we got a lot to discuss. Let's get started. All right, so first of all, what is naval action? And I'm going to read a paragraph that I picked up here while I was doing some research for this. Naval Action, a historical-inspired naval combat simulator developed by Game Labs, once held promise as a niche but richly detailed sandbox for fans of the Age of Sail warfare. However, despite its unique premise and beautifully modeled ships, the game has accumulated a significant number of negative reviews over time. These criticisms stem from a combination of gameplay design decisions, development missteps, and community management issues that have alienated both new and veteran players. Now, these are all true, I suppose, but I want to say, the ships are beautifully modeled and the combat is fantastic. The game as a whole, in my opinion, runs great. There is not any errors or that. There's some people complaining about connection errors. I have not seen any connection errors myself. It's been solid. It has never crashed on me. I've never had any problems, so I've not experienced any bugs whatsoever. So there's that. And there is a lot of veteran players that are unhappy with the game. I guess there was mechanics in the game that they have removed, and we'll talk about some of those in some of the points that I'm going to make later on in this video. But for now, there are a lot of negative complaints. This is a combat-focused PvP game in the Age of Sail. It's a little bit of a slow burn. The combat is very slow paced compared to, modern shooters and all that. So be aware of that. But let's go over some of the most common complaints that I have read in the forums so far. And the first one I want to talk about is a steep learning curve and poor onboarding, and I've got another paragraph that kind of sums it up here that I'm going to read it to you. One of the most common complaints is the game's unfriendly experience for newcomers. Players are dropped into a world with minimal guidance, often without essential equipment like cannons or ammunition. The starting ship, the Lynx, is underpowered and ill-equipped for combat. The players receive no additional funds to prepare for battle. This results in a frustrating early experience where players must grind for hours before engaging in the core naval combat that the game promises. And again, this paragraph here is actually true. But in my mind, as a new player, this is a good thing. Like when you play most MMOs, when I played WoW or even EVE or anything else like that, you start out with pretty much nothing, and you've got to do some grinding before you get into the real meat and potatoes of the game. And the meat and potatoes of naval action is the combat. But when it starts you off with the Lynx, which is a very, small ship, a beginner ship with no weapons, but it teaches you how to do submissions, how to make some easy money. Now, sailing to one island to the next may take some time, depends on how the distance, we can be up to, 40 minutes, even an hour maybe, depending on how far you want to sail. But often it's not that bad, I don't think. Now you do have to buy gunpowder and cannonballs, but you can also craft these things. And the crafting in the game is, for me, one of the highlights. It is really good, and the game kind of opened up to me as first as like an economic simulator kind of deal. While I was running some cargo missions, and then I started crafting, and now I am trying to make profit selling my goods, and it's working quite well, and I'm having an absolute blast doing that. I have been spending over about, I've been in the game for over 100 hours, and I have not even fought another player yet. So the actual main focus of the game, I have not even done, and I'm having an absolute blast. So be warned when you first start out the game that you will be starting out with pretty much nothing, and that you will have to do some grinding, you will have to do some sailing around the open world, you will have to try to figure out how to get gunpowder and ammunition and stuff like that cheaply. And I would suggest you take a look at the crafting and start working your way up the crafting tree as a new player is a great way to start, because once you get the crafting underway, the things get a lot cheaper. Now I am making, you know, gunpowder is pretty much no longer an issue, minus I don't have humongous ships yet, but you know, the complaints that they're running out of gunpowder and everything else, I wonder how much crafting these people actually do, or they just want to go and buy stuff from or loot ships and have all the stuff and just want to fight and don't want the other MMO features of the game. You know, it is an MMO, you're gonna have to grind, so that is just the facts of life on this game. So be prepared when you're a new player to come in here that you're gonna have to do a little bit of work before you get into the fighting. Now let's move on to the next one, and that's the excessive grind and economic frustration. And I'm gonna read you another paragraph that I got copied here. The in-game economy is notoriously punishing. Players must purchase cannonballs and gunpowder separately, and the quantities required for even a single battle can be very expensive. This system discourages experimentation and makes combat, a central feature of the game, feel like a financial risk rather than a thrilling challenge. Additionally, the removal of passive income features like fishing has made it even harder for players to earn money without engaging in repetitive or high-risk activities. Now, I would agree with this paragraph in the most part. There is grinding for sure that we've already gone over. You're going to have to grind if you want to buy gunpowder, if you want to buy cannonballs and all that, you're going to have to grind. But it doesn't talk about the crafting, right? And I think the crafting is a very central pillar in this game when it comes to PvP and when it comes to being able to fight. You're going to have to look at it both. And let's talk about both those aspects of this. Now, the crafting, if you spend the time and you unlock all the blueprints for this, you can craft a lot of gunpowder and cannonballs for very cheap. I find it pretty cheap, and it's not a whole lot of work to do it. You know, especially you can do it all in the noob zone. You're completely safe, and you can, you know, if you want to play a game that, you know, maybe you can watch a movie to or whatever else, this is a perfect opportunity to do it, because traveling around, it does take some time to sail from one port to the next, and if you're going against the wind, it can be very slow sometimes. So there is that time that's a down period. But once you get set up with a bunch of trading ships in your fleet and you can carry a lot of stuff, it's not that bad of a deal. I think it's actually quite enjoyable, and I do not mind it, for me anyways, at all, because I don't find the grind to be that much. Also, in a PvP aspect, having players sailing around like that gives a potential for some good PvP. In EVE Online, some of the best PvP encounters that I experienced was when we were guarding or when we were on trading missions and we got jumped by PvPers and our corporation came flying in to save us and all that, and it was great fun. And I believe what the developers are doing here in the latest updates, what I've seen so far, and by removing some of these passive incomes, is to remove the ease of which, you know, they can gain materials. So now they're, you know, if you can just make all the stuff that you want passively in your main harbor, there's no going out to gather materials. The ships aren't out on the water. So I believe that they are trying to maximize the PvP potential by putting crafters and trading ships out on the oceans, running missions, trying to deliver goods back and forth. So that's the way I look at it. I think it's a good thing, and I think that in a PvP game, having passive income is not that great of an idea. I would like to see, you know, if it was me, one of my ideas to improve the game, and this will probably be a hot take and people will get upset about it, is actually getting people to repair their ships. I was actually very surprised once I finished my first fight that I didn't have to repair my ships, and my ship was 100% right afterwards. You know, I would like it if they would add that maybe, and maybe it's a hot take because that would be even more of a grind. Or if you lose too many sailors and you can't sail back or something like that, you're gonna have to call in some help or something. I don't know. Like, it would be interesting if after a fight you had to make it home limping in your half destroyed ship and spend the money to, or the materials to fix your vessel. I don't know, that might be a hot take because people are already upset about the grind right now, and I'm finding it, like, I find it fascinating that they want all the fight, but it sounds like, to me anyways, they want all the fight but no work and no repercussions for losing a fight. You know, if you spend the time creating your own vessel, creating your stuff, and then you lose it in a fight, that kind of hurts, and that raises the stakes of PvP, and I think that is what developers are trying to do here. Let's move on to the next one, and that is like controversial design changes. Now, I'll read another paragraph here to give us some context. Over the years, Naval Action has undergone several updates that many players feel have worsened the experience. The consolidation of all factions into a single starting port, Nassau, has stripped the game of its once distinct national identities. Safe zones are limited to and poorly designed, with shallow water that prevents larger ships from docking. This has rendered many paid DLC ships unusable in key areas, leading to accusations of bait and switch tactics. So again, most of this paragraph I do agree with, but let's talk about some of the finer points in here. First of all, the DLC, I'm not a huge fan about buying the ships. I don't feel the need to buy any of these ships. There are a few DLC that I will probably end up buying, and one of them is the Admiralty Connections. It gives you warehouse space and all that, so that is pretty good. I'll probably end up buying those types of DLC, but I probably won't buy any of the ships. We'll see. You know, if I like the game a lot, then I usually will throw the devs some money and buy a little bit more DLC, even stuff that I don't like. It all depends on how long I play and how much I am enjoying the game. But right now, as a new player, I haven't bought any of the DLC, and I'm getting along just fine. And also, I don't really think it's pay to win, because I don't think some of those ships, they're good, but I think you can build ships that are equivalent to it. So I don't think that they're like an advantage over a player that doesn't buy it. So there's that point. Maybe some of the older players can chime in, but I don't think there's any real advantage to using a DLC ship, although I think that it just kind of spawns. So maybe you don't have to create it, and you can just, if it gets wiped out, you can just spawn another one. That might be, one aspect of why to buy it, to eliminate that. But I'm not that far in the game, and the DLC, I do have one DLC ship that was given to me somewhere along the lines. I think is because I've owned the game since 2018. I did look on Steam, and I have owned the game since 2018, yeah. But I don't have enough crew to actually run the ship that I have at the moment, so I haven't actually tried it out. But we'll see. The other thing I want to talk about is the poor design in the safe zones. I disagree with this. I think that the safe zone is actually well designed. It is a mostly shallow water for smaller ships, and as it being a noob zone, I think that is great, because it gives a player a place to start, for one. Everybody's in the same port, which it was another complaint, that it has removed the individual factions and you all start in Nassau, which I also think is a good idea, because having a full area where there's lots of players when people start is very important, or else people will just kind of leave if it's dead. And if everybody kind of started off in their own zone, I think once, as the player base kind of evens out, and it's looking like it's starting to do that right now, in the slower times, it may be a little bit too dead for new players. So I don't mind it having people around and everyone starting at that zone. And also the depth. So it's mostly shallow water. So all the boats are relatively the same size, and they're all sort of in the noob size, So a new player, I think it took me a couple hours before I was actually fighting anything, and I could beat ships in my small ships. There's NPC ships you can fight. So there's a lot to do in the noob zone. And also having there is a deep water port in there. So it's not all shallow. You can sail a larger ships in there, although most of it is shallow water. But as you progress, what I find, the missions and everything else kind of push you out of the noob zone slowly. So there's always incentive to move out. And ultimately, the game wants you to go into the PvP area and leave the noob zone altogether. And there's a little nudges here and there to push you out. And I think that is one of the design decisions that they're trying to go with the shallow water in the safe zone, is so when you start building your bigger ships, you actually have to go out and spread your wings and get out of the noob zone. So I don't agree that that's a bad thing. I think that the noob zone is well designed, and I actually enjoy it a lot. I've spent over 100 hours in there right now, and I could probably spend a lot more time in the noob zone. It is a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff to do, especially if you like to trade and working on your crafting. It's a great place to do it. And I just run around there with no worries whatsoever, and I'm going up the craft tree, selling my ships now, and it is very exciting for me. Although I do enjoy trading games, if you look at my channel, it is focused on trading games, so I might be biased towards that. But you know, if you do enjoy crafting and everything else, this game, even on the PvP server, is quite good. It's quite good. So don't be scared off by any of this kind of stuff. But be warned, there is some grinding. It is the noob zone is smaller than the rest of the area. There's some shallow water, and sooner or later you will be pushed out if you really want to start expanding into the larger ships, especially. Let's talk about the next topic I have written down here is developer decisions and community relations. Oh, and before we go, we're talking about the several updates. Now, I just started in this last wipe, and they've removed a bunch of features like fishing and all that we talked about already. But I believe that, again, they're kind of focusing on the PvP aspect, trying to get people to sail around more and not be safe, and to put some weight in the combat, right? So that you have to craft your ships, and also clans are going to have to start, I think, are going to have to start adding, people that like crafting into their clans, right? If you can get some crafters going on that like to build ships, and you protect them and all that, and you buy their ships and all that, I think there's players out there that would just do that, right? Like, that's very enticing to me. And I probably would do that for a while, and then in exchange, take me out on some of these larger fights once in a while, show me the ropes about fighting, and I'll kind of supply the clan, even if you're just shipping logs back and forth and just supplying the main clan's home base with materials where the other players can use. Wouldn't be a bad thing, right? Like, I'm pretty sure there's players out there that would do that, and I think some of these clans that are just purely PvP have to start adapting to the changes here to make it viable, because if you're a PvPer and you haven't gone up the craft tree and you don't like crafting or anything else, then I can understand your frustration, because you're going to have to start doing that to survive, I think. Now, again, I don't know what it was like in the past, but that's what it looks like to me now. Now let's go to the next one, is the developer decisions and community relations. And I've got another blurb here that I'm going to read. Perhaps the most damaging factor has been the developer's relationship with the community. Many players feel that feedback is ignored and that updates are implemented without regard for player input. There have also been reports of forum bans and inconsistent moderation, which has further eroded trust. Some players even allege that developers changed the company name to avoid legal issues on Steam, raising concerns about the transparency and accountability. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that theory is correct, that they changed their name, and I don't know how the developers were acting in the past or not, but the developers right now, they seem to be taking player feedback very seriously, although a lot of players may disagree with me on that, because they players saying, like, just roll it back, right? Roll it back to 2018, 2019, or whatever else. And I just don't think that is viable to do, because the game was never that popular to begin with. I've never seen it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but how big is the peaks, right? When is the golden age of this game? It's 10 years old, and they want to bring some more players back, and I believe that they're on the right course by trying to do PvP centric updates, and they're doing a lot of balancing and everything else. And they have polls going out. There's a bunch of polls last week going out asking for feedback. So I see maybe where this complaint is coming from, but in my personal opinion, this is not that big of a deal to me. Businesses are going to do what they're going to do. I have faith that, that I don't think the developers are out there trying to kill the game, on purpose. I think that they're trying to do their best, and they have knowledge that we may not have. So about this topic, I can't really say much, because I just tell you the truth, I just don't care what the developers are doing. Like, they're making a game. Like, I don't read the patch notes, I just want to play the game. I don't follow anything on Discord a whole bunch. I read the forums here or there just to see what the trolls are doing, because I do like reading a good troll post here and there. But ultimately, if people are getting banned and doing all this stuff, I don't care. I don't care, because I rarely speak inside there. So maybe, on this one, you're gonna have to make up your own decision, because I just don't really know enough about it, because I don't get involved in anything really outside the game. So I don't know. And I don't think that they just changed their name for legal purposes to avoid legal issues. I believe that the company did go out of business and some of the people picked it up. I'm not sure. They are developing another game, and I hope that it does turn out very good. Sea Legends, it sounds like a single player Naval Action, and I'm super excited about that, because I believe that the base game, if they take Naval Action to make it a single player game, I think it'll be a win, because the gameplay in Naval Action is really good, and most of the negative comments coming in is just because it's an MMO, right? So I'm thinking, if you can make it a single player, you could get rid of a lot of the complaints and keep the core gameplay the same, and it would be a win. But again, the relationship with the community and the developers, I don't care. Don't care. Let's move on to next thing here is a shrinking player base and PvP imbalance. As the player base has dwindled, the game's open world PvP has become increasingly unbalanced. New players often find themselves targeted by experienced veterans with little chance of escape or retaliation. The lack of deep water ports in safe zones exasperates this issue, as players must venture into dangerous water to progress, making the game feel hostile and discouraging to all but the most dedicated fans. Now, this is probably true. I am just about to get to this spot in the game myself, but I have traveled around already in the PvP zone with my small ships, and I have not been ganked or even seen any other players really. I've seen players out there, but nobody has attacked me like that. But this is probably happening, like in every PvP game, this is going to happen, right? And this is part of the fun. You are going to lose your ship. You are going to get destroyed. You are going to lose all of your goods when you're doing this. This is just the facts of the game, and any kind of PvP game that at least I've played, and it's true in EVE, it's true here, right? So I don't think that this is a big deal. My big suggestion is to get the crafting down so that you can build your own ships, you can build all your cannonballs, you can build your own gunpowder. Then you can withstand a death very easily. Make sure that you have a good trading fleet kind of set up in the noob zone, and if you die, you can go back there and build back your stuff. And if you plan it correctly, it'll be very quickly, and you'll be right back out there with your ships. And that is how I'm approaching the game. Is I want to get a good enough crafting level so when I go out in PvP and I lose my ship, which I will because I'm terrible at combat, and I'm really looking forward to fighting some of you guys out there. Ultimately that's what I want my Let's Play series to become, is fighting other players, win or lose, and recording them, and hopefully some players will come hunting me down and everything, and it'll be I think it'll be a lot of fun. but that's what I'm planning. But I want to be able to support myself. Now, if you're not crafting and you go out and you get wiped, it could hurt and you could take some time to recover. But what I'm seeing is if you have crafting down pat, then death is not that big of a deal. So my suggestion again, get crafting underneath your belt, and I think that a lot of this stuff will disappear. There is a deep water port in the noob zone. I am camped there right now, and I am going to try to build bigger ships. I haven't got there. I'm just about to upgrade my shipyard pretty quick, I think, in the next few episodes in my Let's Play series. So if you're following that, you can see what happens, because I do plan on trying to build some large ships in the noob zone. So not all of it is true, but take it as you will. You will get ganked, and you will have, you know, experienced players come and gank you and all that. That is with every single PvP game I've ever played, open world PvP game. This happens. This is not new. I don't know why people are freaking out about this. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. It's a PvP game. I got a last blurb here. In summary, Naval Action suffers from a combination of poor onboarding, punishing economic systems, controversial design changes, and the strained developer-player relationship. While the game still offers a unique and immersive naval combat experience for those willing to endure its flaws, many players have found the journey too frustrating to continue. The result is a game that, despite its potential, has become a cautionary tale in how to not manage a niche MMO. And I agree, right? I agree. It is not, definitely it is not for everybody. This is a niche game, and there is, you know, maybe 700 to 400 or so players online that I've seen. It can go up to 1,000 sometimes. But there's a lot of fights going on and everything else. There is PvP and stuff happening, and I'm hoping that some new players will see this video and join in, because it is fantastic. Now, the poor onboarding, it depends on if you want instruction to carry you through the whole thing and teach you exactly every step of the game and all that in some nice video format or something like that. It's not here. You're going to have to do a little bit of research. The game is complicated. There is a lot of mechanics to learn. The combat is very intensive, right? There's a lot of nuance to it to become really good at combat, and you're going to have to do that if you want to do some PvP, because there is some seasoned players that have been playing for 10 years right out there. And right now I have troubles beating NPCs, but the fights are fantastic. So be warned that there is going to be some research that you're going to have to do. That it's not going to hold your hand, but I believe that the onboarding overall is pretty good, and starting you off with a ship with nothing in it is, in my opinion, a perfect start, because it teaches you how to, you know, it introduces you to crafting, it introduces you to mission running, it introduces you to the market and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is the number one. You need to get that under your belt before you actually get into the PvP. And if you run from just noob and you run straight out to PvP with your buddies, you are going to have a bad time, because you're going to get wiped out, and then you losing your ship is going to be a big deal because you can't afford to buy another one. So be warned that you're going to have to build yourself a little bit of a base, kind of a little bit of supplies and everything, before you can really enjoy the PvP. And I also agree that a lot of the players and I hold no fault to them. If it's too frustrating to do and you want more of an action, there's a lot of games out there that have action based and really quick fighting. You know, should they make this game into a battle royale kind of deal, or a hero shooter, everybody just picks a ship and fights for an hour, and then at the end you get some points, and or like World of Warships or something like that, maybe that'd be a good idea. But this is an MMO, so there is a lot of other aspects. There is trading and all that stuff, and I think that it's great. And a lot of people play that it's missing a lot of features and everything else, but I think that most of that stuff is fluff. And I personally don't agree with any kind of passive income at all in a PvP game. I think it's a bad idea. And when I heard, that was one of the selling points actually for me to jump in, is when I heard that they removed that kind of stuff. So I don't know, it's I hope that you make your own decision. The game is free to play. You know, download it on Steam, take a look at it, and make your own decisions, and try to and overlook the overwhelmingly negative response is there, because I feel that it's unwarranted in a lot of ways. And as a new player, I'm having an absolute blast. And don't be afraid of the PvP server at all. I've been in the PvP server for over 100 hours, probably close to 150 hours right now, and I'm having an absolute blast, and no one's ganked me, and it's been fun, and there's a lot of stuff to do in the noob zone, so you can spend a lot of time in there doing stuff and leveling up and getting your crafting going and fighting NPCs, and it's a good time. It's a good time. So I recommend that you take a look at it and kind of don't open the forums for a little while and try the game out yourself before you dive into the forums, into, you know, that mess and seeing everybody freaking out. Anyways, I'm going to call that an episode for today. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you soon.